Hello, hello.
Say hello.
Hey,
What
Catherine. Hey,
up?
Joe. What's up, Andy? How's everyone doing?
Good.
Doing great.
Awesome. Catherine, you back from your Southern California adventures?
Yeah, a nice long workout.
Yeah, you were gone for a while, huh?
Yeah.
How'd you feel your race went?
Oh, horrible.
What?
The cold weather just got me, so it is what it is. So plenty
Aren't
of
you,
other races.
don't you live in Chicago?
Yeah.
It's cold there, isn't it?
Yeah, but 46 degrees coming out of water is pretty bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That was bad. But I love California was great. It was cold all weekend, but great city. I love it.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it was 22 when I left the house this morning, and it's gonna be 55, and my daughter was in like shorts and a t-shirt. And she's like, "It's so hot today." I was like,
Yeah,
all right.
we've got 80 here in Chicago, so it's pretty nice.
Wowzers. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Potts, you were pretty cold in Oceanside too, yeah?
Yeah, I got cold.
Yeah. That's all you like 2% body fatters. That's your problem. You just can't put a little meat on the bone.
Yeah, I think I was saying this to some people after the race, and I thought that the older we get, sometimes some of that resiliency that we may or may not have taken for granted um, isn't there when it comes to things a little bit outside of your control, or even within your control. You just have it takes a little while to bounce back or like to work through it. I think we have more coping mechanisms as we learn and grow and gain experience. But I think the um, just the overall like resiliency and just in the moment we're just not as resilient. It's interesting as you go through it because in your mind, you know that you are the same person, but through age and just for various circumstances and reasons, you don't have what you used to have, or it takes longer to mine it and really try to get it to come out. When you look at the biological level,
Yeah. I mean, I think physiologically what happens is your as you get older is your blood vessels. And I might be wrong about this, so there's a doctor in the room, let me know. Your blood vessels actually have less elasticity. And so because of that, your circulation's not as good. And that's why you're actually colder as you get older. So that it's not just your resiliency, you're still strong mentally. It's actually physiological.
So there's this one really funny skit on Saturday Night Live when they like make fun of Alexa,
Okay.
the little pod, uh, and like it's an older woman. She's in her house in a blanket, with a hat and a jacket on, and she's telling Alexa to turn up the heat, and Alexa's saying it's 107 degrees. And it made me think of that
It's
actually.
pretty funny. That's pretty
Yeah.
funny. All right. As you guys can tell, we're just killing a little time, seeing if anyone else is going to join. Right now, I think our Hollywood squares are about 9 deep. Um, I guess we should just get started and see where we go.
Yeah,
So,
I think getting started, like we kind of hit a little bit on California just to kick it off. So I know that as the season progresses and we have that launching off point, I mean, racing's here in North America. We're not the same as we were before, but maybe we're even better in some ways that we didn't know. But you have to give yourself a chance on race day, and you got to put yourself out there. So
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. All right. So, to kind of lay expectations for today, here's how we're going to go. Since there's not many of us, it won't get too unruly. If you have questions or anything you want to talk about, you could just, unmute yourself and ask. If there's like topics you want to cover or things about the team you want to hear about, you could ask or just put it in the chat and we will just hit all those things like a punch list. Does that sound good so far to everyone? Cool. I
Yep.
saw some head nods from people with video and thumbs up. Sweet. Otherwise, what Andy and I think we want to cover today is we're gonna talk a little bit about Oceanside. Everyone knows there, which we already did. Talk a little about like lessons learned from racing in general, to give a little information. We got some team logistics stuff in terms of like clothing orders, hat orders, and next races coming up. And then also announcing about the regional teams. So that's kind of what we're going to hit on today. Is there anything else you guys want to hear about or talk about? Just let us know. Either raise your hand, say it, or throw it in the chat. Sweet. So AP, we just talked about Oceanside a little bit. Why don't you kind of like, I mean, you were out there, you got to meet with everyone on the team, kind of give a little recap on the race and kind of things you took away from the race for yourself that maybe people could take away from their own race for going forward.
Okay, I'd say the biggest lesson learned in terms of when wheels landed, I flew in, so wheels landed and then flying out. The biggest lesson was I thought that the race was going to be one thing. And it turns out about 16 hours before the race started, it changed. And things change all the time. And that's a lesson that you're going to have to continually learn. So we had a swim. We did a practice swim out, and it was, you're supposed to go through the break. Then you swim out to a red buoy, 200 and some odd meters, 300 meters out, and then take a right hand turn into the harbor. Well, they totally scrapped that swim, and we swam in the harbor. The swim in the harbor has been done before at Oceanside, and it actually, I think for a lot of people, it took their anxiety level. It was like pretty high, and it dropped it down just a little bit because of getting through the breakwater. One of the problems, though, was the anticipation and what it took to wrap your head around a new swim negated any of that anxiety that happened with getting through the break. Now things change all the time, and you have to be kind of willing to roll with the punches. And I think one of the key lessons was how not to listen to the noise on weekends. There's so much noise, and we want to, as a social group, we're getting together, and you want to try to talk about something that's familiar and that resonates with each person. So you'd end up talking about the race or your prep, and you get wrapped up in what either other people are talking about or doing, or things that are just out of your control. So I do think it's valuable to use the energy of the day to help you with your quest, but I think it's counter when you get so wrapped up into, is it going to rain? I don't know. So what if it does? Be prepared. Is the swim going to change? Maybe, maybe not. We'll find out. I think you do need to have a few skill sets so you're able to deploy them mentally and physically to the task at hand. But that's probably the biggest takeaway I got, where I felt like there was in my opinion, there were a few too many people wrapped up on getting through the break and the swim start, and then how it changed. And I mean, I was texting someone at night who was there, and they were like, "I'm not racing tomorrow. It's too, like, I can't get through the waves." And I was like, and I took a snapshot of, well, this is the picture of the swim course. Do you want to still not do the race? And they're like, and they started crying. They're like, "Yeah, I'm going to do the race." So I think they specifically were nervous about like the specific skill set of getting through the break, and how to duck dive and how to get around the waves. But there was a lot of chatter, and it was just noise, because on race morning, everybody was like, "Okay, here's what we're dealing with. This is what we've got today." And I felt like there was a vibe to Oceanside that I haven't seen in a while. I've done that race maybe a dozen times, and it was like it was maybe back in the early 2000s. It had a real nice vibe. There was an expo. I could feel like triathlon is starting to maybe turn the corner in terms of its the way that it makes everybody feel. And that's a really great thing. I hope that trend continues throughout the races here, not only in North America, but wherever your races are.
Yeah. I think a really good lesson, just kind of repeat it what Andy said, is that there's so much noise on race week, whether it's like, oh, look, that guy looks fast, or he looks fit, or the weather, or the wind. I mean, and none of it matters. Like, how you negate all that stuff is preparation. So if you prepare properly, you don't have to worry about these things. So prepare and show up on race day and don't listen to everything else. It could even be as simple as like, oh, there's a fun run with this person, and then there's a happy hour with this person, and this and that, and all these things. And like all those things are great and they're really fun, but it creates a lot of energy that you have to spend. So really like meter your energy race week, race month, and like in terms of like where you put your energy. Like I'd rather think about going through my day than worrying about if it's going to rain or not, or if it's going to be windy, because it's less important. Just go out and execute.
Yeah, a while back, my wife told me, so when I show up to races, a lot of people ask a lot of my time, and I was, whether it would be a sponsor or the race programmer or friends or whomever, it doesn't really matter. And my wife said to me, "Hey, I know you're trying to manage your time on race weekends, but how about you look at it in terms of managing your energy? What does it take for you to manage your energy? And then it will clarify what's, where you put your time." And that was really like, when things get murky and foggy, it was like it totally cleared things out of the way for me. So,
Yeah. All right. So let me ask a question to the crowd. Catherine, you raced. Besides being cold, do you have one key takeaway from the race that you're going to incorporate now into your training or your next race to be better?
Yeah, am I speaking?
Yeah.
I threw out all my goos because I believe they were expired and just gave me bad ups. I think I'd swallowed some salt water and I had like expired, I think, goos or gels or something because my stomach was just totally trash. So I came home, I restocked everything. That is one takeaway.
Okay. That's a good one. That's a good one. I mean, the other thing with your nutrition and stomach issues, a common issue a lot of people have is when you are cold and when your energy level or heart rate's high, it's really hard to digest. So you have to find something that's a little easy to digest or be able to like take things in when your heart rate drops a little bit and you maybe warm up a little too.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's a good one. Andy, did you have any takeaways that you're taking to your training to prepare for your next race?
yeah, there were some small things that I felt like I got the big things correct. I felt like I missed out on a few of the small things. It hasn't been quite nice enough to ride outside, and I felt that big time on the race. So I rode outside yesterday. I'm riding outside today. I'll probably ride outside the rest of the time. Maybe till Ironman Arizona, I'll be riding pretty much 90% of my rides outside when it's when I can. There are some small things. I know people like trainer rides just because they're repeatable and they are like you can manage a ton of variables and they answer about 85-90% of what's required on race day. But there are some small things that it's worth it to be outside for. So I was reminded like, hey, even if it's inclement weather, for me, I have to get outside and ride. And I'm planning on, after the call, plan on going ride.
All right, what are some of those things to give people some information and background on that, like why you found it? Because from what I remember, you used to ride inside 100% of the time.
So I did ride out inside a ton. And like I said, it answers a lot of the demands and the requirements on race day. But I found myself really struggling to accept the challenges that were presented, I was like, well, why am I not meeting this? I don't understand. And I wasn't putting A and B together. There was a disconnect. There are surges that happen in when I race, that are like, you're either part of the conversation if you want to win the race, or you're not. And it makes it makes riding and the pro side of things very dynamic. And I wasn't able to respond as well as I thought I should be able to. It wasn't like I didn't have the mental focus that I was too exhausted and I couldn't respond. It was like physically like, I'm fatiguing in these areas. I thought I was fully prepared. I shouldn't be fatiguing. We're only 15 miles into the ride. What's going on? So I started to have to answer those questions. And then also with the extreme demands on the duration of events, especially when you're going into Ironman racing, are you able to stay pedaling and riding as much as necessary and is required on a trainer that you would outside? And I had this really great training partner who was willing to go out and ride with me for 7.5, 8.5, 9 hours. And those were some of the things that I needed to get what I wanted. So what is it that you want?
Wait, who is that guy? Just so we know.
Oh, that guy was Daniel Brienza,
Oh,
right
hey,
here.
how's it going?
Hollywood Spaero. Yeah. So, and the thing was, Daniel, my training partner, was willing to do what I wanted to do, and that's a hard thing to find as well. I was like, this is what I need to do today. He's like, okay, let's go. And I was like, really, you're willing to do all this? And he's like, yeah, let's go. So that was a big eye opener for me. And we started measuring our rides differently. Instead of time in the saddle, we were looking at different metrics to make sure that we're getting what we need. And one of those metrics was kilojoules. What we're looking at is like, okay, so when I race a race, so let's take Oceanside. Right. So I raced Oceanside. I burned 2,500 kilojoules on the bike ride. And that's a fair amount if you guys don't understand kilojoules for a half Ironman. So that equates to almost 5,000 kilojoule burn on an Ironman. I burned 4,200 to 4,400 in an Ironman. So I was way above that because of the effort required. So if you know the kilojoule burn, all you have to do is look back on an old file and with a bike computer. You say, oh, this is how much I burned during a half Ironman. I try to meet that demand at least 3 times a week in my training. And then when it comes to Ironman, it's a little bit less. I try to meet that demand maybe one time a week for sure, and leading in. And then on another ride, I get about 80%, about 85% in one ride, over 100% in another ride. And that tells me, oh, you are doing the right things because this is the energy requirement.
And we do that about 8 to 12 times a year leading into an Ironman. And the other thing that's important is you can get that burn many different ways. One could be for a duration burn. So it could take you 8 hours to get 5,000 kilojoules, or you can do it in 5 hours and you up your intensity. And so as we train, we kind of play those two against each other based on where you are in your training cycle. And we do that a lot with Andy as we're going into those events. The other thing I think is important, Andy, not to like kind of sidetrack us, I think you froze, but so that's why I'm going to talk, is oh, you didn't, cool, you were just really still, is when you ride on a trainer, and you talk about this all the time, the bike and the floor is one and the rider is two, right? So you're manipulating your body and the bike and the floor are staying static. When you're on the road, the floor is one and the bike and the rider are two. And so you manipulate the bike and yourself. And what happens is all your muscle stabilizers are a bit different. The way you can manipulate the bike and the way you can ride is different too. And you get better at riding as well. Like we talk about it all the time. When Andy started riding outside, I'd outfox him a lot. Like we'd go out and he'd be like, wait, I don't understand. I'm pushing 320 watts. You're pushing 260. How are you with me or ahead of me? And it was because I manipulated the road and the bike so I didn't have to push as much watts as him. And that comes from riding outside. So a few things to think about there. All right. Anything else, Potts, on Oceanside, or just things people could take with them to their next race?
I think, the main things are, making sure you get the swim and the bike and the run dialed. But then as the season progresses, look at the details. Look at the details within each discipline, technique-wise, as well as energy systems and muscularly. And then some of the details when it comes to racing, making sure that your transition is set up, making sure that you don't have expired gels, and making sure that, you brought everything that you need to race. So I was missing something on race day, and I was like, I didn't realize it until actually after the race, until somebody said something. I didn't even know I was missing it, but it would have helped me a little bit.
Yeah. You got friends calling you. One other thing, and it came up last night, I had a talk with a group of athletes, and they were like, why do we, and maybe you guys take this with you, why are we swimming so much? Or why do we swim so much early in the year? And I feel like my running and my bike isn't there yet. One thing you got to remember is like running is something that, what do we say? Running punches back, right? You're completely supporting your weight. The road kind of punches back at you. Where swimming and biking is weight assisted. And your heart and lungs don't know the difference between swimming, biking, and running. So early in the year, you could train your heart and lungs more with swimming and even biking and mitigate risk injury, especially for our older athletes. And then you can build into your run as you go. The run doesn't have to come early on and come later on. So as you're preparing for the year and thinking about it, something to think about. Speaking of next races, I was going through the team calendar, and we have 5 people racing in St. George that I can see. There's probably a few more, 11 in Chattanooga, 4 in Texas, and about 9 or 10 in Oregon. Plus we have another like 20 or 30 other athletes from our other family of teams that are racing there as well. So those will be races that we'll probably target as our next team events. Ooh, that's a post-it over your camera. Let's go. Did you just take your shirt off? No, I mean, sorry. So look out. There'll be some. I'll probably create a Facebook group for each of those. Not a group, an event. Then we can chat within the event and kind of coordinate things. Out of those events, I'm not sure which ones Andy and I will be at, so we'll be looking for some team captains for those. So I'll make the event calendar, put it up, and then we'll set up that kind of that coordination. Sound good? Cool. If there's other races you guys are going to, and you'll be like, hey, even if we only have 2 people, let's meet up. I'll put it on you guys to kind of go through the calendar and figure that out. What else we got? Logistics. You guys will get an email from the ambassador team. The elite team will get this too, but you guys already kind of did some hats. We're going to do a hat order. It's going to start today. It'll end next week. So you can get a matching hat to your ambassador team kit. There are minimums for those hats. If we're close, we'll fill in the gaps, but let's try and get close. If not, we can't order the hats. So order stuff. Otherwise, we don't have hats. Cool. Also, you asked, we listened. We're going to reopen the team clothing store because I know people wanted to fill in some of the stuff they wanted. That'll open up tomorrow and it'll be open for about 10 days or so. So be on the lookout for an email, Facebook post about that as well. Pick up the extra stuff you needed or wanted. Hopefully people wanted stuff. It sounded like it. So we'll go from there. Any questions on those things?
Yeah, we got a question. Tracy asked about sweatshirts. I don't know about the sweatshirts, but we can look into it.
Yeah.
Did you?
Absolutely.
Was it a Spaero sweatshirt, or was it Spaero, or was it a Spaero logoed sweatshirt?
Yeah. Looks like Catherine's typing.
It was last year's Spaero sweatshirt. It was the team sweatshirt that everybody got. It's like my absolute favorite sweatshirt. I've worn it to death. So.
Yeah, people at Oceanside were asking if more Spaero sweatshirt shirts could be reordered this year.
All right, so what I'll do is I'll ask Ryan and those guys if they can maybe add it to the team store.
Okay.
And if they can, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll look into it and figure it out. Always use a good sweatshirt.
Okay.
Let's see.
Okay, I think those are our logistics. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Claire, I don't know the answer to that because I haven't. Are you wondering more about like comfort and how it fits in?
Or just like, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, so typically that tri-suit, because I have a different version of that suit, like different colors,
Mhm.
works great inside your wetsuit.
Okay.
No
All right.
issues at all.
So I have an answer on this one.
Yeah, go.
All right. So the new tri-suit, what ends up happening as you put your wetsuit on, it will roll up on the sleeve. And then it will, when it rolls, because it's got the gripper, and the gripper will stay against the skin if you are swimming without a wetsuit. But when you pull the wetsuit up, it wants to roll up, and that's how it's bunching. So you have to kind of push down, and it also can happen on the thighs. And what you don't want it to do is let it roll up, because the band it creates has a lot of tension in it, and it has the potential to cut off circulation. And as we were talking about in the beginning, sometimes when you get older, your circulation diminishes. So what I do is I will I'll push down either on my arm, and then I'll slowly inch back up, and then I'll get it over the rim, and then I will actually stick my hand in between the wetsuit and make sure that it's smooth. And I also do the same on my thighs, and that prevents like pinching or any kind of discomfort that may happen. You won't really feel the constriction on the thighs on the swim, because you are flat. But as soon as you like get up and stand or try to run, then they can be like, oh yeah, it feels constricted. And then with the arms though, you definitely feel it, because you're trying to swing and swim, and it's like it's one of those blood flow restriction. It's not quite like a why am I blanking on the name? What's the thing that you put around your arm?
Yeah.
Stop blood flow.
Oh.
What is that?
Like a tourniquet.
Tourniquet.
There you
There's the
go.
word. Yeah.
Yeah. So it can act like a tourniquet because the fabric builds up. So just smooth it out. And otherwise, it moves really well. I actually put Vaseline in between on my skin and the suit in my armpits to prevent potential chafing. I haven't had chafing, but I also, every time I put in Vaseline.
Yeah.
And that will become a little bit more apparent if you're doing a wetsuit swim in the ocean versus in a lake. The salt water can add to friction. So other than that, it performs really well in the wetsuit.
Sweet.
Cool.
Hey, Andy, have you tried to roll the tri-suit down under a wetsuit and then put it up? I'm concerned because I've worn the SP1 for training twice, and it's like pretty sticky on you. And I'm wondering if you're wet, if you're going to be able to get it up in T1 without help.
I've done this, and it's very stressful during the race. Because of the lengths of the sleeve, so I'm pulling it up, and the lengths of the sleeve sometimes will catch on like my forearm, and I will get it up over my shoulder, but the armpit will be like at my elbow, and then I'm inching it forward, and I'm like struggling in transition, and I'm just trying to go fast. So I do not do that anymore, but the way that it sits, it shouldn't impede your swimming. But I know that some people they really don't like it on like something on their torso, an added thing on their torso.
Yeah,
I've done it. It's not fast, but it feels better when you're swimming.
yeah. Yeah, those,
So I choose for the fast and feel bad.
yeah, those suits in general, like let's say you're wearing a swim skin, they're pretty good. Like they're pretty hydrophobic as long as they fit right, and you'll be okay with the sleeves up. It's faster to swim that
Well,
way.
I'm hoping Texas is gonna be wetsuit legal, so let's go with that.
Yeah. All right, let's do
I
it.
think it might be.
It could be.
Yeah.
And I heard if you do Texas and it's wetsuit legal, if you wear a hoop wetsuit, you'll go really fast. Just saying. Any other questions from the gallery here? Okay. All right, so be on the lookout for team clothing store, team hats, potentially sweatshirts too, upcoming races, and then the regional teams. If you have any other questions or thoughts or want to do anything, send us a note or post it up in the Facebook group. Words of wisdom, I think we're pretty good as you're going to your training and your racing. I know everyone likes to stalk Strava to see people come into their races. Don't listen to the noise, but let's create a lot of noise out there. Let's go Team Spaero. All right, guys, have a great day.
Thanks.
Good chatting.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.